record.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
Today, I am here to give you the assurance that I have not forgotten you.
If we want to see the new evangelization become more than just jargon, if we want to see it grow legs and gain traction and change the world, we have got to take seriously our responsibilities as husbands and fathers, and especially as sons of God.
I want to propose to you then that something that our world is desperately in need of in the midst of this crisis is Catholic Christian masculinity.
If you want to be a good father, then bring your children to confession with you.
I can't get there unless I become a man of ascesis, a man of asceticism, a man of training.
A man not doing penance, a man not disciplined, is not a man.
You guys have upped your game.
You know what, guys? I gotta say, I love the concept of Man Show.
Boom. Warning. The Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. Adam Minahan here. Sitting to my right is my best bud, David Niles. To my left is my new best bud, Dave VanVickle. And to my direct front is a bunch of our friends.
All of our best friends.
All of our best friends from heaven. It's epic. We have a bunch of relics in front of us today that brought to you by Dave VanVickle. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah,
and bringing a bunch of our friends.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Give a couple, what do we got in front of us here?
So we have a couple relics of the Passion, a piece of the cross and a piece of the crown of thorns. We have a couple Marian relics, which a lot of people don't even know exists, a piece of her veil and a piece of her belt. And then we've got a few saints here. One of note, Mother Teresa of Calcutta is my favorite right there, and Blessed Bartolo Longo. So there's a few there you might recognize.
It's epic.
Yeah.
This is a first, Dave, right?
Yes, for relics on the show?
Yes.
Totally.
Yes, totally. First on the Catholic Man Show. So, Dave, we had a great talk last night that you gave to St. Anne's over, I don't know, maybe 250, 300 people. I don't know how many.
I think it was close to 300.
Yeah.
It was a big crowd.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
And
you knocked it out of the park.
Good.
So
thanks.
if anybody is looking for an excellent speaker to come just really destroy the minds of all of your audience in the best way.
Yeah, not destroy, but
just it's like forget blowing their minds. It's like
good.
They might just be totally obliterated.
Yeah, but go check them out, Dave VanVickle, and it's asinnersguide.com.
Yeah, thesinnersguide.com is where my calendar is. So come see me.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we also were able to record the talk, and I think we'll be able to put it up for our patrons, correct?
Of course, yeah.
So if you're a Patreon member, you'll be able to get that talk here pretty soon as well. So, Dave, any other introduction that we need to do before can we get into the topic, or what do you want to do?
Well, let's just mention what we're drinking.
Okay.
We need to
Tradition.
stand on ceremony
Yes.
at least for a minute.
I agree. I'm having an espresso.
Me too.
And you're having a latte.
A latte, but now I feel weird because you guys are having
fine.
real manly.
No, I would be doing that too, but I'm lactose intolerant, so.
I had one already this morning, so.
Yeah, sure.
I did.
Just make me feel better.
Haley made me a latte this morning.
I'm just not manly. The milk is just too much for me.
So typically what we do on the Catholic Man Show is we open and review a beverage. We highlight some kind of gear that men like and want and desire, why it may be virtuous, why it may be a manly thing, and then we jump into a topic.
We've talked about relics before on the show, but we could at least just mention, since they're here before us. Dave, can you just give us a brief rundown of what relics are?
Sure.
The mechanics behind them. What are the rules?
The mechanics.
We're Catholic, okay?
Right.
Like there are rules,
right.
okay?
Right. Yeah. So interestingly enough, right? It's like one of those thoroughly Catholic things that we don't really talk about very often anymore. In fact, most parishes now they have relics, but no one knows that they're there.
Right.
A lot of times they're stuck back in a sacristy, or
they all do in theory, right?
The altars were supposed to all have a relic stone. Now that doesn't not necessarily ring true for everybody, but but yeah, they were all supposed to have a relic in the altar, and that comes from relics started because of when Christianity was illegal, right? They were celebrating Mass in the catacombs where the martyrs were buried, and they would literally set up an altar over their bones, right? And then when Christianity became legal, they thought, well, it's fitting, right, that we have celebrating the Mass over the bones of the martyrs, right? The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, right? And so they brought those relics up, right? And then that became kind of a very Catholic thing to do. But really, relics are kind of linked to, at least in my mind, to Eden, right? That it's like the power of death has no hold on them anymore, right? Even through their bones, right? God communicates life to us.
Yeah.
And so most of the time they're a piece of bone. The older relics might be pieces of organ or something like that. The newer relics are usually just blood or hair or something that normally comes out. They don't dissect the bodies anymore like they used to.
Why not?
I don't know why, but it had to do with something about respecting the body.
Okay.
So like I think with like Pope John Paul, I think it's mostly just like blood and hair, and those would be first-class relics. And then a second-class relic would be something that they owned, and then a third-class relic would be something touched to one of those things, right?
So even if it's a second-class relic, if you touch something to a second-class relic, it still makes a third-class relic.
And in fact, I was confused about this, but I heard the other day that even a third-class relic can associate another relic. So
I did not.
I did
know
not
that.
I did
right.
Not know
So
that.
I mean, nobody knows.
Is there
about this stuff.
like a hierarchy of efficacy when it comes to that? You know,
I don't know. I don't know exactly. I know that it's like when it comes to using them in spiritual warfare, it usually has to do with the fact that this saint had some kind of relationship to the demonic or something, right? That he beat them or something like that,
right?
And so they kind of respond in that way. So they say John Vianney, right? Or
Padre Pio,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's common. It's almost like watching two rivals, and the one rival's just never ever won.
Yeah. This is one of those things I think really weirds out Protestants,
right?
But there's Old Testament. It's in the Old Testament when they throw that dead guy on the bones of Elijah when he comes back to life. I mean, It's always that's
even St.
part
Paul,
of
right?
With the handkerchief,
handkerchief with St. Paul.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they were just trying to get in their shadow, not even like something that they own or anything like that, but just like if I just can get into their shadow.
Yeah, I'm so holy, my shadow's a sacramental.
Right. Yeah, and even the entirety of the Old Testament, like God uses objects to communicate grace, right? Like Moses' staff, the serpent and things like that. So it shouldn't be too much of a stretch.
The ark.
But it is right. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Isn't it weird whenever in the Bible when it says the lady touched Jesus's tassel, that Jesus felt something
power flow
him.
out of him,
and it's like, what was that?
I know.
That would be so. That was so crazy.
I know.
Like he's still he's fully human, fully divine.
Yeah.
But yet he still felt, this power coming out of him.
That's the part that I get tripped up on. It's like you felt the power go out of you, and you're omniscient. You know what? Like you knew before you got here this was gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah. And you're still like, hey, who was that?
Yeah.
Really, Jesus?
Right.
I could find out, but
you know all the hairs on my head, but you don't know who it was.
It's going to take me like 30 minutes.
Right.
There's a lot of people here.
I'll do it if you want, but really?
But isn't that crazy?
I know. I think about it all the time. Man, it's like one of my favorite stories, and I mean, the idea, like if I could go back in time, that would be one of the ones that I'd want to be.
At that scene.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Totally. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just such an incredible thing. And I think my wife is really what kind of, she loves it, and she talks about it all the time. Mm-hmm. And when she talks about it, I'm like, oh man, I never thought about that, and now it's like it's just such a deep mystery, that poor woman.
Yeah. It's like very Jedi Knight.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing that God can use whatever He wants of His creation to bring up the glory of God, the kingdom of God, however He wants to do it, he can do it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's beautiful. It's almost like people were just longing for the relics, even though they didn't know about them. Right. And it's like, I've watched like so many beautiful encounters with people, and I sometimes will bring them to high schools and stuff like that. And it's amazing to see these high schoolers just respond, like, getting on their knees and just experiencing them. And they'll say things like, I think I just felt something, and it's like, and I encourage it. Like, yeah, of course you did, this is beautiful,
So is there a rule of thumb about if you're going to, you have these relics here, what should you be pressing to them? What was associating?
Yeah, I guess so. I think I just made that word up.
Okay, well, you touch something to the relic. You make a third-class relic of your own.
Right.
Because this is a beautiful practice. You should do it if you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like if you have a rosary, do that. I do my scapular, my miraculous medal, and I just did my wedding ring. Is there anything that's like, is there a rule though, like don't do if you're not going to treat the object
so that's what I always
sacredly,
Right. So I always tell people, make sure it's something that you're not just going to throw away, because this is real now, and I usually tell people not to use anything profane, so they might use like a slip of paper if they have nothing else. But I wouldn't want it to be like a slip of paper from something profane,
Right.
Something like that. So I am certainly not an expert on relics, but I, have, asked enough questions of experts, to know a little bit about it. So.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, we're about to hit a break, but when we get back, we'll jump into maybe spiritual warfare.
Cool.
What is spiritual warfare? I think the devil's done a really good job of convincing men that they're not even in a war.
Right.
Which if you're not playing the game, if you don't know you're playing the game, you can't win.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
So
or to stay away from it because it might put you in harm's way if you enter the battle, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll jump into that, and then we'll talk about ways that dads can take their authority and spiritual authority to the family and protect them and all sorts of fun stuff. So we're here with Dave VanVickle. We'll be right back.
So like the first 30 seconds.
I saw that. It's okay. We're all right. We recorded it for the Unbeamix, so I can pull the audio.
Yeah, I just wanted you to know.
Yeah, we're good.
I forgot to start the recording right here.
I noticed. We normally have Juan here
doing
pushing the buttons for us, but he's at a marriage retreat. Is that what he's at?
Yeah, the Together in Holiness.
Yeah, Together in Holiness retreat. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Put on by JP2 Institute, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You good?
I'm good.
All right, let's roll.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles, here with Adam Minahan and Dave VanVickle. No idea what nationality VanVickle is.
It's Dutch.
Wales?
Dutch.
Oh, do you know what? Somebody at the talk last night had the last name VanVickle.
No kidding.
She said I was the first person she ever met with the same last name.
Dutch.
Yeah, it's Dutch.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about it other than that.
Okay. Because I was thinking it's like not quite German.
Right.
Dutch.
Dutch, yeah. There you go.
All right.
Nice.
So you are from Pittsburgh.
Right.
You're here.
He's from Dallas. He was born in Dallas, right?
Grew up in Dallas.
You came here from
Dallas.
Pittsburgh, though.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I've been in Pittsburgh for 9 years.
How is Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh's awesome.
Is
but,
it?
The roads are
like
terrible.
Snow. Yeah. Right.
The roads are terrible. There's not a straight road in Pittsburgh.
I know.
You're going to get from
straight
1
up or
mile.
straight
It's straight. It's like this right here. You're wiggling all around.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy.
I think the steepest road in the country might be there. I just read that the other day. Yeah.
Sweet.
All I remember
I like
when
the
I was
challenge.
When I was in Pittsburgh, like I went underneath this bridge and then I went straight up the road, and on the very top was like a Catholic church, like at the very top.
And a sharp turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was St. I don't know. I can't remember what Catholic church it was, but it was
bridge,
huge, steep, right on the top. Catholic
I feel like
church.
Pittsburgh is just it does the name doesn't make me want to visit there. I don't.
No, but it's awesome. You would love it. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
There's a pretty strong Catholic group there too.
Community. Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, and there's a lot of like young, awesome priests there and everything, and there's a lot happening there now.
Sweet.
Yeah, so it's great. Yeah, Pittsburgh's great.
God be praised. Okay, so we want to talk about spiritual warfare.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a manly topic because it involves war.
Yeah, Right.
But it's not just for women. It's for it's like
Or
if
just
you
for men,
if
it's
you
for
want to
women
go to
as well.
Is that yes, thank you. Yes, it's also for women, not just for men.
It's not just for women.
It's for anybody who wants to go to heaven. Is kind of the way I think about it.
Yeah.
So what is basic level? I always like to define our terms in the beginning.
Right.
What is spiritual warfare?
Right. So spiritual warfare is classically speaking, right, what the church would say is that battle that we wage between the world, the flesh, and the devil, and us, right, in order to participate in the victory of Jesus Christ that he gives to his church, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like the classical definition, but played out more, I don't know, I guess personally, right, what you see is that because of the fall, right, Satan gains some dominion over creation, right, and he claims everything he can, right? So you see this happen where as soon as the fall happens, right, when sin enters the world, then if we fast forward 2,000 years to when Jesus is rushed out into the desert, what does Satan say to Jesus? He offers him not just one kingdom of the world, not just a few people, he offers him all the kingdoms of the world, right? So you see this kind of encroachment of the kingdom of darkness into taking everything they can, right? And that he has claim over all these things, and then Christ comes back to reclaim what is his, rightfully his, and he does reclaim, and that battle ensues, and we play kind of a role in like the mop-up battle in a sense, right? Because the victory is won definitively on the cross, and then that victory is given to his church and is communicated to us through the church.
Yeah, I like the way you put it in your talk last night, that in a lot of spiritual warfare, you're making a claim on another person. I think you were talking specifically in the rite of exorcism when you said that, but it made me think of baptism, and there are exorcisms in the baptism sacrament of baptism, different kind of exorcism, but
minor is what we call it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But you're still making I claim you for
100%.
Christ. It's because it has to be done.
Right, and that's the only Catholic. Well, it's frustrating because exorcism has now been understood as like a fringe part of the Catholic Church. But what you just said is exactly how you should understand it, right? The church has the power and the right to claim individuals for Christ into herself, and exorcism would be a tool to defend that claim, and that's how we should see it. And in the entirety of the church, it's not just a baptism ritual. Everything about the church has claim written into it, right? That I'm taking this person into me to present to Christ, right?
Yeah, and there's something very Christ-like in that. You're not claiming yourself. We like the church is coming to your rescue. Right. She is claiming you and pulling you out of your sin because you can't do it yourself.
Right.
Christ was the one who won the victory. It's his. He's the author behind and the motivator behind everybody's salvation. Right. And so I just really love that. Some of our Protestant brothers and sisters, they think, it should be something that a decision you make. Who may argue against infant
all
baptism.
Based on personal faith.
Right, yeah, but that's still kind of a prideful stance that like, I saved myself. It was my decision, It's like
you're just cooperating with what Christ has already given you.
Like you're still not doing that. It's Christ, he comes to your rescue.
Right, and that we see you guys know we see that in the Catholic way, where like the work your way to heaven kind of an understanding. It's the same thing, but yeah, it is it's interesting because you cannot separate. That's the thoroughly Catholic way to understand spiritual warfare. You can't separate the church from it, right? Christ establishes a kingdom, and the kingdom, right, is the rival kingdom to the kingdom of darkness. And so you can't separate those. And so the church, it plays a major role. It's not just our personal faith that saves us from the world of darkness. The church plays a role, and that means that priesthood is important, confession is important, sacraments are important, right? All these things are very important.
One of the things you said last night that I really loved on your talk, you're talking about, like, you asked the question, you get asked all the time, what can I do to help? Right. And you said the two things that we need to focus on is evangelization and the pro-life movement.
Right.
And I thought, well, that makes sense because evangelizing, if you're evangelizing everybody else, you're growing the body of Christ, you're growing the kingdom,
right?
Which I don't know. I just never really thought about, okay, how can I help an exorcist or how can I help in spiritual warfare? The first thing that comes to mind isn't, in my mind, evangelization.
Of course, right. but it's a super aggressive act. So, like the fancy buzzword for Catholic evangelists now is the kerygma, right? Which is a proclamation. But a kerygma is a proclamation of a battle being won, right? I mean, originally in the ancient world, that's why you would hear a kerygma proclaimed, right? A good news, because the emperor was telling everybody, hey, I got another place for us. I got another kingdom for us. So it's a very aggressive act. And in fact, it's one of the easiest ways to tell if someone is struggling with these extraordinary attachments to evil is to just kind of proclaim to them the kerygma and see what the response is, because demons hate it, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
So why the pro-life movement? Evangelization,
right.
I understand pro-life movement.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Right, yeah. So, and I say this often, right, that the devil loves blood, death, right? That the devil deals in death. That's what he in the end, he always wants to be worshipped, and in the end of that worship, he wants to be worshipped with human sacrifice. And so in some places it's codified in religion, right? Like you see that in the Aztec world before Our Lady of Guadalupe destroyed the evil kingdom, right? But in today's society, you see it in a forced secularism, right? Where I mean, clearly Planned Parenthood is probably the most evil organization that has ever existed, you know, and whether we are doing it to worship Satan or not, this is all part of his plan, right? He wants blood. He wants
innocent blood,
right?
Exactly. It's innocent blood,
exactly, and it's a clear. I mean, there's no question. It's a clear mockery of the cross, right? An innocent person gave his life, and so in this case, we're taking an innocent person's life for some sort of freedom, you know? Quote.
Right. So would you say that the attitude of resignation is, does that underline all of spiritual warfare? Just that I totally resign myself to the will of Jesus Christ?
So that it is very clear in the lives of the saints that is the secret, right, to everything, right? That my kind of obsession is female mystics, which is funny because I'm on the Catholic Man Show, but is female mystics and their relationships to the devil.
I'm the same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you study the female mystics and their relationship to the devil, it's like watching spiritual warfare from it's like studying boxing from Mike Tyson, right? Oh, like this is the way boxing was supposed to be.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it's very clear.
They're
right?
so receptive.
They are
yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. They're receptive. And so that is exactly what the devil is going to try and destroy, right? That receptivity. And what you'll see is just, the idea that resigning yourself to God's will, regardless of what happens to you. I mean, that's the trick. You might still get pummeled, right? And I think that's where people kind of get off the bus.
Right.
But
picking up the cross and following him
exactly.
is not fun.
No, it's not. It's not a fun thing. And I think people think, okay, well, I'll resign myself to God's will, and then everything good's going to happen.
Right.
No, that's not necessarily true.
This is not health and wealth.
Right.
Yeah.
What you know is that resigning yourself to God's will keep you safe, right, for eternity. And that's the underlying secret. And a personal faith does. I mean, that's what we mean when we say a personal faith fights the devil, right? We're talking about a daily lived response to the gospel where we are continually subjecting every second even to God's grace and knowing that we can't live the next second without God's grace.
You just said keep you safe, and that makes me think in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the siblings ask the beaver about Aslan.
I love that part. That's my favorite part.
Is he safe? Because he's a lion, and the beaver says, safe.
Who said anything about
safe? Of course
safe?
He's not safe,
right?
But he's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a T-shirt that I sell that has that quote on it.
Oh, really?
Love it. Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's like, that's, many times Christ calls especially certain individuals to a life of what might outwardly look like incredible suffering. And
right.
it maybe is a life of incredible suffering, but there is a reward for that individual in that suffering of joy and peace. There are victim souls throughout history who have been called to bear the cross of even possession.
Oh yeah, right.
And
Holy
so
demoniacs,
people might think that, if I give my life, I'll be safe from possession. It's like, well, you'll be safe and perfectly where God wants you to be, and that is really the most important thing.
Right.
In fact, a lot of the saints even said, like, when they stopped suffering, they didn't like it because they didn't have anything to offer offer Christ, which is like that is next level.
Hashtag Mother Angelica.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
All right, we'll be right back.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. It's like when you can get to the level where you feel like you don't have enough to offer God because you're not suffering enough.
Right. We talk about this all the time because people, so like the 3 medical conditions of my children, they did like this crazy genetic test. It was like $48,000. I remember because the insurance company called me and was like, "Do you really want this?" And they found no genetic link. And the doctor said, "Do you realize that the rarity of these diseases, like it would be like someone winning Powerball 3 times in a row?" And I was like, "I'm gonna throw you through that window." Right. But it's like I can honestly say that after baptism, confirmation, communion, confession, that the greatest graces of my life were my children, like and their crosses that they bear, because it just broke me, and it put me in the shadow of the cross all the time,
Good book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that that's what you're talking about. Sorry.
See how it wobbles?
I know.
That.
I think mine does too.
Why does it do that?
It is frustrating. But just don't play with it. Just stop fidgeting with
it. No.
Yeah, I understand.
I must.
I understand. I get it. I get it.
Stupid microphone.
Before you leave, I want to take one of those Blessed Virgin Mary relics and let my kids pray with it.
Yeah.
This is just a reminder for myself to make sure that I don't forget.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny about those? Well, the crown of thorns is almost impossible to get, but the Marian relics and the Passion relics, compared to the ethnic saints, they're much easier.
That's crazy.
Like you could never get Padre Pio or like Juan Diego. It's like you're never. It's like almost impossible.
How hard is it to get Aquinas?
Not hard at all.
Really?
What?
Yeah. Not hard at all. I have a piece of his chair.
No kidding.
I could have gotten a first class, but I wanted that chair, where he taught from.
That's epic.
Yeah.
Well, if you know, we're on the lookout.
Okay, I'll look.
That'd be awesome.
Whatever.
The thing is, like, so Gomer wouldn't be able to abide that. Like the whatever, it would never come. He'd be like, no,
I got to figure this all out.
And like 3 hours later, be like, Gomer, I
got it.
I have to do other things, man.
Right.
I don't have time for you to be fidgeting.
Well, it's just not going to be any good if I can't. Okay.
All right.
Okay. I was worried about that.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Good.
I'm ready. Okay. Is everybody else ready? You guys ready? Okay. I remembered I'm not the only one here.
Yes. It was through your humility.
Yes.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Talking about spiritual warfare today with Dan VanVickle, asinnersguide.com, or is it The Sinner's Guide? Is it Sinner's?
The Sinner's Guide.
TheSinnersGuide.com is where you want to go. Book him for your next. The Lenten missions are coming up.
Are you? Come see me. I'm booked. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet
Lent is rough. Yeah.
But summertime would be good.
Yeah.
Fall, whenever.
October. That's when everybody books. I book every single night of October. Isn't that
funny? That's
funny?
because of Halloween.
Yeah.
And All Saints Day.
Right. So a lady came up to me yesterday, said when she was a little girl, the priest had a beautiful reliquary, all these relics, and on Halloween they would do a procession with the relics.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is a great idea.
That's what I said.
Right.
That is the best idea.
Right.
That's what you should be doing on Halloween.
Acculturation of the gospel. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And so, if you are at a parish that has a reliquary,
ask
your pastor. Ask now, because if you ask a week before Halloween,
it won't happen.
Ain't gonna happen.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
that'd be epic.
Put it in his mind now. Sacred Heart in Miami has an incredible reliquary.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know, in Pittsburgh we have this place called St. Anthony's Chapel.
Okay.
And it has the most relics outside of the Vatican.
Wow.
No kidding.
It's insane. Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in Pittsburgh not too long ago. Are you close to Allentown?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
I'm there all the time because I work with Dirty Vagabond Missions, and now they're just called Vagabond Missions. And
okay.
I'll get in trouble for that. And they have a place in Allentown. So
okay.
Right.
All right. Okay, so we're talking about spiritual warfare today. it's interesting because everybody jumps to exorcisms whenever we talk about spiritual warfare. Like, that's like the go-to. But what people don't understand is it's very hard for any kind of manipulation from the devil if you're living a sacramental life. Last night you were talking about, one of your main goals in exorcisms is to make sure they get to confession, to try to get them back into a sacramental, a prayer life, a life within, like, to be able to receive Christ's graces again.
Right.
So I think a lot of times people like throw this idea of exorcisms way up here, instead of like, no. The sacraments that Christ gave the church to institute, like, confession's where it's at.
Right. Yeah. Because it's the difference between a sacramental and a sacrament, right? A sacrament, it is Christ, right? Is Christ communicating himself to us from himself, right? A sacramental is kind of like using that mediation in a sense, right? And the power comes from the blessing of the church. So if you could not add up enough exorcisms to equal a confession, right? It's not possible to do that. You couldn't have 1 million exorcisms and say that equals one confession,
right?
Because God is infinite and gives himself to us in the sacraments. So it's one of the very first goals that we do, and it's also the remedy to not ever having issues like with the demonic attachments, right? Is that living a rigorous sacramental life. And in particular, if you understand that what Satan is always trying to do is push us into the fall, right? Then what we're trying to do is get back to Eden, right? And so like in the fall, right, when they hide themselves because of their nakedness, right? What do we do in confession? We expose ourselves, right? In an awkward sense, right? But we expose ourselves, right? And we are going back to Eden in a sense, to that original intimacy with God. And Satan has a very difficult time dealing with people who are regularly subjecting themselves to the sacraments.
Yeah, because Satan and the demons, they would just destroy us if Christ didn't prevent them.
Right.
I mean, the only reason they don't just come kill all of us immediately is because Christ stands between us. So the state of grace and remaining in a state of grace is the number one spiritual warfare thing that you can do.
Right.
I mean, I think people often spiritual warfare, it's like, say if you can get this old prayer because this prayer is so old, it's like more powerful or something, or it's like, no, just be holy,
right?
And make your family holy.
Yeah, live a life of virtue. Practice your, live out your vocation.
Right. Yeah, and I said that last night about evangelizing and doing pro-life work, fighting the devil, but for God's sakes, have a bunch of children, right? And teach them that to live a life of holiness. That is going to conquer evil more than anything. Satan hates families, and in a lot of ways, like, family is the remedy to a satanic isolation, right? In the Gospels, when Jesus encounters the Gerasene demoniac, right? Remember, when he heals him, the Gerasene demoniac wants to go with Jesus. And what does Jesus say? No, go back to your family. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful little, expose on what the family is with regards to Satan, right? And with regards to the spiritual battle. It's important, right? The family is important.
So as men, we have the office of fatherhood,
right?
So maybe give us a couple tips that you think where we can exercise our office for our wife and for our children.
Sure. So the first thing is in your teaching office, right? That your children and your wife need to be taught, right? That hopefully your wife understands this already, but your children need to be taught that, first of all, God is not angry at them, right? And that's a big thing, right? For the devil, the very first step he's always going to take in drawing someone away from God is to mess up the way they think God sees them. And so they're going to start to push him away from God's mercy, thinking that, well, my sin's too great for his mercy, or he's angry at me. So if you can teach them that, then teaching them about baptism, it is very rare that someone would be severely attacked by the devil if they understand baptism, right? Because, and in fact, in a lot of cases where someone is authentically attached to evil, like in an extraordinary way, I'll say, were you baptized? And they'll say, yeah, but then I did it like a ceremony when I was 14 and I unbaptized myself. And I'll say, well, I don't think anyone told you about baptism because it's not a contract.
Because you can't do that.
Right. You can't unbaptize yourself. It's a covenant. And it's not possible. And literally, I can honestly say that oftentimes that's enough for them to be healed. Just that knowledge. Firm knowledge. Right. Truth is the first exorcism, So teaching your children that, but then also operating in your priestly role, right, as father of the house, right, blessing your children and blessing your wife is a firm way to protect them from evil. And we see this all the time. It's funny. Sometimes you'll see an exorcist bless a demoniac and nothing will happen, and you'll see that exorcist bless the father of the demoniac and they go crazy, right? Because when fathers are engaged, right, in the battle, there's the big problems happen, right? Big problems happen. Yeah, it is. It's very, and their mother as well, but especially the father, they'll go crazy because they know if that father engages, their time is,
because it's all about authority,
right?
And does that happen more if it's like a generational thing? Like, is that more likely to?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily have to be that way.
Okay.
No, it could certainly be an issue, but it certainly wouldn't have to be that way. In fact, if a father's engaged in the faith in the family, the devil is going to have a hard time with that family. You know,
totally.
If the father's engaged in the faith, just because of the fact that, right, he has that spiritual authority over his family, and so you'll see that it's a pretty common thing. I don't know if anyone else has noticed it, but I've clearly noticed that. You know, you can see a big reaction when they go after their family.
Yeah, because as the father, you are the initiator of the gift.
Right.
You know, you are the primary source of life in the house, and so you fulfill an important role.
Right.
And the natural and the supernatural are linked.
Right.
You know, if we have a natural role, that natural role spills over into our supernatural role.
Sure. I think going back to what you said about the state of grace, you know, I would like encourage dads to think about what it would be like if they had some kind of disability. Like, you know, all these soldiers who are coming back from Iraq and they have some kind of disability, and it's difficult for them to care for their family.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that as the state of grace, right? Like, if you're not in the state of grace, in a certain sense, you have a spiritual disability to care for your family, even though you don't see it, right?
Right.
And so it's a big problem here because you know, especially with pornography and these kinds of things that are secret sins that you don't think are hurting anyone. Spiritually, it's kind of folding up the umbrella and letting, you know, come what may, you know, in a certain sense.
Yeah. You're no longer standing in the way between them. Just like Christ stands in the way between us and the demonic, we stand in the way between the demonic and them, inasmuch as our office authorizes us to. I mean, it's still Christ ultimately who does everything,
right?
But he uses us for that role,
right? And I think that there's no issue with that, right? Because Catholics don't understand mediators as a hurdle. We understand them as a way, you know, as a pointing the way. And so the Father is, in a sense, a mediator. And so that's why it's really important. And I want to stress also that focusing on defense is a bad strategy. You know,
right?
Get your family engaged. That's what you want to do, right? Like my kids know a little bit. I mean, they don't know what exorcism is, but they know a little bit about, you know, like dad's fighting the devil or something like that, right? And I'll say to them, like, well, when we go to Planned Parenthood to pray, that's when we're really fighting the devil. I want them to engage in the battle. And I'll say to my kids, like, if they're afraid or something like that, I always say, no, the devil's afraid of you. Don't you worry. When you wake up in the morning, you tell the devil you got 5 seconds and I'm coming after you.
Yeah, if you could see the guardian angel standing behind
right,
you.
Yeah, right.
You'd be just fine.
Don't worry. Right, exactly.
He's terrifying.
Yeah.
Jude the other day said, Dad, I want to punch the devil in the face. And then he started saying the Hail Mary.
Yeah, that's
and I was
awesome.
like, I'm not sure how you learned that. Like, I thought you may have said something to him or something, but I wasn't sure how what he said, like how he got that. But anyway, you just said something. Oh, we're getting closer to time, but I do want to talk about the importance of developing a relationship with your guardian angel and how they can help with spiritual warfare, because that's such a gift that Christ gave all of us. Everyone has them,
right? And we don't talk about it.
And we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. We don't talk about
Our buddy Juan, if he was here, he would be like coming out of his seat because
he went to Opus Dei.
Yeah, and he's such a big fan of, you know, developing and cultivating the relationship with your guardian
doing
angel.
That like.
Yeah,
slapping thing that he does.
When he gets excited.
I can't do that.
I know, but yeah, I think that's an important role that a lot of people don't. You know, when you pray the guardian angel, my angel of God, my guardian dear. You know, sometimes it feels like it's such a kid prayer.
Right.
You know, it's like
Yeah, there's an adult way to have that relationship. Sure.
Yeah. So when we get back, let's talk about that, and then whatever else Dave.
Okay.
And Dave wants to talk about.
We're on the Lord's team,
the winning side.
So raise your glass. How many shots of espresso can you have before it's like maybe a health risk?
Do you guys have you ever listened to the Cigar Dave show?
No.
It's a radio show of this guy, but you guys have a lot of similarities.
Okay.
Yeah. Like you'd love it.
He's Dave and I'm the cigar.
Yeah, I don't know where he came from, but it's just a show about cigars.
I have a theory that every good radio show has a Dave.
That's funny.
Yeah, I just made that up. But it's my new theory.
Right.
Well, I don't know what that says about us.
All the shows I can think of right now, it seems to be like, yeah.
Right. Oh, hey, let's make sure when you bring them back in, make sure you talk about Every Knee Shall Bow with
Speaking
Dave,
of a podcast or a show with a Dave on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready?
Yes.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. This is David Niles here with Adam Minahan and Dave VanVickle. Dave is a permanent fixture on the podcast Every Knee Shall Bow.
Yeah.
You do with Gormley.
Yeah. It's been great so far. We talk about evangelization and discipleship and really whatever else is involved in that. But it's been great. And
between the two of you, who's holier?
I'm definitely holier.
Yeah,
He's
that's what I
smart.
thought. Yeah.
He's more intelligent for sure.
Okay.
Than anyone.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a humble response.
Right.
I
didn't even have to blink an eye.
No. I mean, it's like, look, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
He's just not very holy. I mean, just a lot of vices.
It just wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
It's pretty low. It's
a low bar, you know.
So before the break, we were talking about the importance of guardian angels.
Yeah. And it's true what you said. I was thinking about that it kind of is a kiddie thing. Unfortunately, people think that, but there is a mature way to have a relationship with your guardian angel. The rule is basically the holier you are, the more your angel's able to interact with you, right? And we know that they protect, guide, govern, different things that they can do. But cultivating a relationship through prayer, right, devotions to the guardian angels is an easy way to kind of start that journey, and then to ask them for what would be appropriate to ask them for, right? To help you pray better, to help you recognize when temptation's coming, to help you recognize when you're a little bit more tired and maybe can't resist temptation. Those are excellent ways to like kind of grow that relationship in an appropriate way. An inappropriate way would be naming them. We know we can't
I was
name
gonna
them.
ask you that. Yeah,
no, you can't name.
Don't name them.
Right? Yeah. Which is funny that
why not?
Because I guess naming expresses some kind of dominion over them.
Yeah, you're taking authority over them, and you don't have authority over them.
No, certainly not. But also, there are a lot of New Age movements that like talk about guardian angels as well. It's kind of the vogue thing in New Age, guardian angels. In case
no kidding.
Yeah. But I
can't keep up with
the
New Age.
Yeah, like, don't worry, I'll do it. Don't worry.
It's just like always,
right?
Just going crazier and crazier, right?
Yeah. But in that relationship, they would be like engaging them in some sort of conversation, either through channeling or whatever they think. And that's not the relationship we're going to have.
No.
And people will say, well, what about Padre Pio? And I say, okay, are you Padre Pio?
Right.
Are you there yet?
Talk to me when you have the stigmata. And then we'll come back.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can honestly say that people who have devotions to their guardian angel, it's amazing the difference that they experience, right? With regards to spiritual warfare, it really is incredible.
I've heard that you should ask your guardian angel, like as you're approaching the Eucharist, to have them offer everything that you have to Christ.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it. Like, because it's also sometimes hard when you're especially juggling kids and trying to make sure they're all in line and everything else.
Right.
It's hard to mentally prepare yourself that you're actually receiving the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord.
Right.
And so to ask your guardian angel to help prepare and then offer everything that you have to God our Father on your behalf.
Yeah.
Is a good way.
I do that all the time too with evangelization. Like before I'm speaking to a group, I'll invoke their guardian angels, right? Or with difficult conversations, I'll invoke their guardian angels, right? Because it is a very fruitful practice.
I've done that. Ask my guardian angel to talk to their guardian angels.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I know you're buds with.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are friends.
Then you have people who, like, somebody came up last night and said, well, yeah, like, I always, like, send my guardian angel, like, on errands. It's like, I need to find somebody in a crowd, so I sent my guardian angel. Like, ooh, like this is given to you for defense, and you're sending him away. Like, I don't know if it's a good idea.
Bold move.
I've heard people doing this before, and it's not like angels. It's like, oh, my guardian angel. I sent my guardian angel to hang out with. He's like taking care of my dad in the other side of the country, so he's not here with me. It's
it's not a secretary, right?
They're actually not even here.
Right, exactly.
They don't have a place, like except heaven.
Right.
They stand before the throne of God always.
Right.
Like their principal role is intercessor.
Right.
Right.
And they're not recycled. That's another big misconception, right?
That's
like, that like when you die, right, they're gonna like hand in your file to God and then like get another one. It's not like that, dude. This is what's so beautiful about spiritual warfare and guardian angels is they were created for you. So like your weaknesses, like they have strengths to fit your weaknesses and everything, and they will protect you throughout your life and then rejoice with you in eternity. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I've heard that your guardian angels are so devoted to you that they will even accompany you through purgatory should you go that. I mean, it's like I don't know how we know that.
Right.
But
probably some mystic.
It sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, right.
I forget the name of the lady who had a vision at Mass about specifically guardian angels, and those who were present who had an intention or a petition for the Mass, their guardian angels had like this bowl that they were bringing up and laying at the altar, and those who were just kind of showed up with no intention, nothing to pray for, their guardian angels were approaching the altar kind of sad with an empty bowl, like they had
that's awesome.
Nothing to lay at the feet of Jesus for that Mass. So you should always never forget to have intentions. It's like there's so many Catholic prayer hacks.
Right.
Like Adam and I are doing Exodus 90 right now. So every time I get in the shower, the cold shower, I try to remember like, oh, this is my intention for this shower.
Yeah.
And we just need to do that. We need to.
Oh,
that's how we can live
a more
prayerful life. Everything that we do is now becoming, a prayer.
Right.
Who are some of the saints that are not well known, or maybe blesseds who are not well known, who seem to have powerful intercessories in the spiritual warfare?
Yeah. So, Gemma's starting to become known, right? She's becoming more popular, but Gemma Galgani is clearly God uses her in a very special way to vanquish evil.
Yeah, I think many people do not know her.
Okay,
I only barely know her. Really,
she was a victim soul, and maybe even like the quintessential victim soul. Even more so in my opinion than Padre Pio, and has this amazing relationship where God uses her to crush the devil, and underwent many exorcisms because of the suffering that she was able to endure. One of the more controversial ones that is Blessed Annalise Michel. Annalise Michel is
I don't know her at all.
She is the kind of the poster child for atheists on the internet because she died while being cared for by an exorcist, and the court actually convicted the exorcist in Germany and put him in prison.
Emily Rose,
yeah.
Oh,
Emily
okay,
Rose.
yeah. They changed it. You've seen the movie Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Right.
It's really this lady. Okay,
right,
yes.
Annalise Michel, and she is a beautiful intercessor and is very powerful. One of my favorites is Blessed Bartolo Longo.
Who's here?
Yeah, this is Bartolo right here, and he they call him the Apostle of the Rosary, and he went through a time of atheism and then got involved in Satanism and was actually a satanic priest. And was so emaciated that one of his professors, who was Dominican, saw him and said, "What happened to you?" and taught him the rosary and led him on this journey to freedom. But he's an incredible intercessor, and he kind of played a role in my life before I even knew who he was. I remember one time walking into an exorcism, and the demoniac looked right at me and said, "Every time he walks in, Bad Bart and its beads come in too." And I remember thinking, what is that? And it was like 12 years later that I learned about Bartolo Longo.
Bad Bart is a pretty sweet nickname.
Yeah, right. Right. Bad Bart and his beads,
Yeah.
If you're going to pray to Bad Bart.
Yeah, right. So, Mother Teresa of Calcutta is a well-known one.
Yeah.
And I think you can just see the poverty, right? Satan hates, poverty.
In humility. I mean, she was very, very humble.
Right. Yeah. So those are some of them. A really very little known one is Blessed Maria of Jesus Crucified, who was a holy demoniac as well, and she tends to show up all the time during exorcisms and things like that. Yeah.
I've heard JP2.
Yeah,
shows up
often. Yeah, very often.
What about Saint Philomena?
I don't have any experience with Saint Philomena, but I know if you read some of the old school exorcism manuals and stuff like that, they always
they seem
her.
Yeah, Saint Therese is
right.
one.
Right, Therese. Yeah. I mean, I literally know exorcists who will, the very first thing they say during the exorcism is they demand to know the demon's arch nemesis. And then they ask for their...
If you can get the demon's name, it's a little bit easier to figure all that. And of course, Saint Michael.
Yeah, of course.
If the person is liable to get up and run around, you might command Saint Michael, hold them in that chair.
Yeah. They do it all the time. Yeah.
And it's funny, that works.
Right.
It's we're not just...
Oh, yeah.
We're not just pretending here.
Right.
That really, look, it works.
Right. Yeah.
When the priest commands.
I mean, that's the beautiful part about, the beautiful thing about studying exorcism and hearing about it is it is the perfect microcosm of the church, right? The communion of saints plays such a role. All these things play such a role. The priesthood plays such an incredible role. And it shines a light on all those things in a way that you can really thoroughly understand why it's present in our church and our theology. You know?
Yeah, the beauty of the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And everybody, the hand can't say to the foot, I don't need you.
Right.
That's what I love about, there's so many things about our church that the more people are in the body of Christ, the more the beauty comes out. And it's that's what it's meant to be.
The bulwark of holiness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we shouldn't be televising exorcisms. There's not a show.
Right.
But if the more people know about them, it leaves no room for question.
Right.
Because that can be a temptation in everybody's life. You have a moment where it's am I just whispering to myself in my closet, or
Sure.
And then, but when you see this and you learn about it, you realize this is absolutely real.
Yeah, I feel very blessed in my faith to have seen what I've seen.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we're going to continue a little bit of a conversation. We'll take a break for a second, but then maybe for our patrons, have a quick interview.
Sounds good.
Dave, thanks so much for hanging out with us, man.
Yeah,
for bringing all of our
friends. I hope I get to do it again.
Yeah, it was a blast. So, also pray for Dave's family right now, please. Amber, specifically Amber.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.
Sweet. Before do you want to take a break? Do you need to go to the restroom, drink, or anything?
Good.
Okay. Are you good, Dave?
Yeah.
Sweet. I figured that was okay to say that about your wife. Just it's very public.
Dude, I'm not a picky person.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. It's very sad though.
Yeah. Please, continue.
We will. By name, we have been by name.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
My family has, yes, for sure.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk to you about is authority. We talked about this briefly in the car last night.
So I formulated my response.
And I also thought about some stuff.
I did too.
This morning. No, it was last night before I went to bed. Is there a difference? Because you were talking about, can a wife exercise her husband?
Right. So here's my response.
Okay.
So I think exorcism, sure. I do think that that's true. Okay. But spiritual authority in other places, the husband has to take
this is
the
exactly
role.
what I was.
Okay.
I was in the bathroom and I said, wait, he was talking about exorcism, which is specifically the body.
The body, right?
But
that's the whole point.
I was thinking about, can a wife bless her husband, which is no, because you're not blessing the body, you're blessing the person.
Right.
Which, okay.
Right. So that's the way. That's
high five.
So that's where I would settle. That's where I would settle on.
Would you please move to Oklahoma so we can just hang out?
I've thought about it so many times. I really have.
Yeah, you should. This is it's becoming like a Catholic hub here in Tulsa.
It is funny. Yeah, it's funny. And in Oklahoma City too. It's it's just funny.
Have you seen what they're building in Oklahoma City? The shrine to
No.
Father Stanley Rother.
Father Stanley Rother.
No, but that sounds awesome.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's gonna be epic.
It's like wow.
Okay, so let's talk about. I want to define terms. I want to define.
We just had a conversation that other people don't understand, like what just happened.
Right.
Okay,
because we didn't even.
Let's fill everybody else in. We were talking about spiritual authority.
Okay. Right.
Just fill it in.
Sure. So this is the issue. Right. When it comes to spiritual warfare, all of us have some authority just through our baptism, right? We know that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Priest, prophet, and king.
Right. There's no question about that there's some authority. But there are levels of authority, right? Mm-hmm. So for instance, there's a higher level of authority that comes through office. And so like an office of fatherhood, even though the church does not allow it, it would be feasible that a father could exercise a child or even his wife because the father has authority over those people. Okay, so he would have the authority to do that. Now, the exorcism of the possessed is reserved to the discretion of the bishop, so we don't have to worry about that question so much.
Could a bishop give faculties to a layman to?
Certainly, he could if he wanted to.
I mean,
right. In fact,
in an extreme circumstance,
in fact, Saint Hildegard of Bingen.
Oh, really?
I don't know if she had canonical faculties.
She was a good cook.
But what?
Yeah.
And she was good at everything, really.
Yeah.
She was one of those like Renaissance women, right? But she was a very famous exorcist, and was the de facto basically exorcist for their diocese.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, she's
like
awesome.
She would do the rite of exorcism.
Yeah, like literally during. She wouldn't at that time. They weren't using the rite. She had her own rites that they were using, but she literally had her own rites, and like there'd be like some of them had like 12 priests and stuff like that. I mean, there's a little bit of superstition there, but she was leading this whole charge there.
Would this be more of an example though that God can act outside of the sacraments, but sacramentals, but we should probably stick to?
We shouldn't expect him to.
This is a perfect example of the charismatic and the office side of our faith, that the bishop really respected the charismatic aspect, right, and saw this gift in her, this charism in her, and decided, well, hey, let's put it at the service of the church here.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
So I mean, it's not going to happen today, right? I mean,
right.
There's too much liability in all of this and everything, and
it's just sad.
Yeah, it is sad, but it's certainly it would be feasible, and like right now, there's a big discussion going on as to whether to allow deacons to baptize. And
baptize or
I'm sorry, to exercise.
Okay.
And I fall very much in the side of that deacons should be able to exercise, because the newest exorcism ritual very clearly is linked to baptism. The lines are very much like, hey, you're not supposed to be here because at baptism we claim this soul. And so if a deacon can baptize, I don't see a reason why a deacon couldn't exercise as well. Now,
by that logic, anybody can baptize.
Sure, right, in an ordinary way. Mm-hmm. But by any logic, anyone certainly could expel a demon. But the church has limited that authority over the years, slowly kind of taken more back to the discretion of the church,
and with prudential reasons.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
it's. I'll get probably a lot of criticism for this, but there's a lot of books out there about deliverance that quote the church fathers, and they basically say, like, in the early church everyone had the power of exorcism. Okay, I have read literally every single quotation, every single document from the church fathers involving the devil, demons, evil, exorcism, and everything. And there is not even a single example of let's say a married person or a non-continent person who exorcised a demon. Not a single example. Now, what happened is there'll be apologetic works where, let's say, Saint Justin or someone like that will say, "Don't you see that we have power over your gods? Don't you see that we have the power of exorcism over your gods?" So it would be similar to me saying to our Protestant brothers and sisters, "Don't you see that we have infallibility?" And then 200 years from now they say, "See, everybody had infallibility.
Right,
Dave VanVickle had it."
Yeah.
Right? It would be a similar thing. So there's not a single example of a non chaste person ever, and I shouldn't say chaste, a
celibate,
non-celibate person ever exorcising a demon in the fathers of the church. And so I found a lot of those quotations to be a little bit academically dubious. Mm-hmm. So authority plays a big role here.
It is the role,
right?
Like,
it
authority
is
like
I mean, everything in the church, whether it's apologetics, prayer, spiritual warfare, it always comes back to authority.
Right.
Either the church.
Oh, hey, we're still going on Facebook.
Yeah. Do you want me to shut that down?
Well, if this is for patrons.
Okay, I can do that. But either
sorry,
the
Facebook.
either the church has the ability and the authority to proclaim what she teaches, or she doesn't.
Right.
You know, if she doesn't have that authority, then we're all we're all idiots and fools.
And if you have an issue with the topic of authority, it's so obviously in the history of the church, the way around that is holiness, right? It's clear, right? St. Catherine of Siena is the perfect example, right? There's no reason she had the authority that she took other than her incredible holiness and her espousal to Christ. And so she was able to talk to bishops, talk to popes, like as if they were her spiritual sons, and even gave a few spankings, right, to out there, on those times. And I remember reading this amazing account of when Catherine had an entourage. She had like 20 people who would travel with her all the time, and the papal lands in France, you could, from the time you entered those papal lands until the time you got to the actual papal palace, it could be several days. And so like envoys would run ahead of you, and tell you. And I remember reading about the dread that settled over the papal household when Catherine entered the lands, because he knew he was in for a spanking, a talking to.
Oh,
right?
no, she's here.
Right, right.
Isn't it funny to be afraid of like a tiny woman?
I know, right. And she was frail at the time.
Yeah.
It was very.
I mean, you could blow her down.
Right.
And you're the Pope.
Right.
But I mean, that's the same thing with Mother Teresa, with Hillary Clinton and all these others,
all generals and warlords and
right. They talk about a woman you could blow down. I mean, like she was take her 10 minutes to get up the stairs.
Right.
And she was like 4'10".
Yeah.
And she was arguably the most powerful person in the world.
Right.
I mean, she would wield more influence.
Of course, yeah. I mean, she stopped wars. She did all kinds of things.
I mean, it's like her and John Paul. When she and John Paul II were both like on the scene, it was like, man, get out of their way.
Yeah, it is amazing. But yeah,
and think about how powerful they are now. Right. I mean, think they're powerful when they were here. Well, now they're in heaven.
Do you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. So, because I've been working like on a lot of academic stuff in spiritual warfare, and the intercession of saints is a way for us to borrow authority that we do not have. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I had never thought of it that way.
Right. So like people will say like, well, why don't you, when you do deliverance or something like that, why don't you command the demons? And I say, I don't feel like I need to, or that it would help. And they'll say, what do you mean? And say, look, well, I can borrow the authority of the saints. I can ask Mary to do what needs to be done here. And in a sense, I'm borrowing that authority, right?
Yeah.
And that's obviously not the technical term, but that is a way to do it.
And I meant to say this when we were talking about saints who are powerful and exorcism and stuff. Of course, Mary is
right.
Top. It's like it goes without saying.
Right. Almost. Yeah. It literally. I'm glad you said it. It literally goes without saying in the sense that
she doesn't have to say anything.
You cannot remove her from a spiritual battle. It's not possible.
Right.
And I'm getting to the point where I feel like almost like a fanatic, that it's like, well, Mary often plays a role, and now it's like, no. In every single, she is guaranteed a role.
Mm-hmm.
And through study of scripture and the tradition, it's very clear to me that God has decided to trounce Satan through his mother.
Right. She's the mediatrix of all graces.
Right. Yeah. So it's beautiful.
Yeah. And just think about that. All graces.
Right.
Christ uses her for everything.
Right.
I love St. Louis de Montfort's consecration, because he also, when he talks about, begging our mother to purify our intentions to bring them to our Lord. It's like, okay, yeah, that's great, because sometimes what I'm asking isn't necessarily the most pure intention or the best said or articulate. Let her take them and then make them the best and then present them.
Right. I love he uses the analogy of when a baker makes like rolls for the king, or he could give the rolls to the queen, and the queen can prepare them the way she she knows the king loves him.
Right.
And then present him to the king. I love that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned when you're going to communion, praying to your guardian angel. I always pray to Mary. That's part of the consecration to St. Louis de Montfort is ask her, to, like, give me your heart.
Me too.
Because mine is, I'm about to receive Jesus, and like myself is just totally unworthy.
Right.
And so help me to love him the way you love him.
You know what I do as well is after reading the lives of Mary and Joseph through the mystics, I started praying and asking St. Joseph.
The life of Mary as seen through the mystics? That
maybe.
book?
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. But I started asking St. Joseph to help me to protect the Eucharist. You know, because that was his role. So like that. So when I go up, I always say, you know, St. Joseph, please help me to revere and protect, you know, Jesus in the Eucharist in his most vulnerable spots, you know.
Okay, I have a controversial question for you. But you asked it, or it was asked last night.
Okay.
But I want to keep going on it.
Okay.
Latin and English, or Latin and vernacular prayers.
Yeah.
During the exorcisms, because I've read
Latin more efficacious? That I think is the question that people want to know.
Yeah, but that is a question that.
So
okay, let's say all things being equal. Could we say that? All things being equal.
Ceteris paribus.
Right. All things being equal, could Latin be more efficacious? Certainly. But that has to do with the ritual that has been used, you know, previously to Vatican II and is still open to being used, right? Because of the way it was written. The Latin in that ritual is unique to the ritual. So it's not like a Latin scholar at a secular university would be able to just easily work through the ritual, okay? So it was crafted specifically for the reason of punishing a demon. So yes, I think that certainly would be more effective. But it's a question that's too far down the road, because there are other questions that are more important, right? The faith of the person praying, the faith of the person, the victim, the faith of the people involved, the receptiveness of the victim, the surrender of the victim. Those things are much more important. Mm-hmm. But all things being equal, I think it is possible. Now, the new ritual is different. It's not like that.
Right.
So I don't see that would be more efficacious. I don't see it. But let me say this so that I can temper who I am. There are certainly scholars who would say you're insane. Just the fact that the church took Latin for her language makes
that
it
was going to be a
more,
question I had for you.
Yeah. There are people who say that, and I just have never witnessed it.
I've heard that. Latin's more efficacious because it was on the cross.
Oh, that's interesting.
The three languages that are on the cross,
and that
Arabic, Hebrew, and Latin.
Oh, okay.
Latin, Greek.
Or Latin, Greek. I'm
Hebrew,
sorry, Latin, Greek, and Hebrew.
Yeah.
It would be.
Those three are all more efficacious. I heard that from one exorcist.
Okay.
I've asked other people about it, and they've kind of said, I've never heard that before.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
And
I mean, that would make sense to me, and certainly little things like that can play a role, but it's usually like that's further down the road. Like if I ever get that involved in exorcism to have to worry about that question, I've been too involved.
And I think that's kind of like missing the forest for the trees.
It is, yeah.
Because Christ gave his authority to the church.
Right.
Okay, you just look at the sacrament of reconciliation. Today it's different than what it used to be. The church actually can change what that looks like. She has received the authority of Christ.
Right.
He gave, everything I have received from the Father, I give to you. I mean, it's like, it's an unreserved authority that has been given to her. So when she says, this is how we wield the power of Christ, that is how it's wielded.
Right. And you can see, if you were to line up the two different rituals, you could see why the old one is more efficacious in Latin. It's clear because it's Christological. So the priest plays a major role in that. Mm-hmm. The new ritual is pneumatological. It's appealing to the Holy Spirit more, and it was clearly written by an evangelist. It was clearly written. It's very charismatic, and so you can see, like, for the old ritual, it's like it would remind them of the language the priest uses during the the Latin Mass, mm-hmm. and all those kinds of things, and that would be awful.
It's very warfare,
right? Right. It's a tank wrapped in a stole.
Mm-hmm. Also, I've heard that there is no official English translation of the old rite.
Right.
And so that is problematic, because when it seems to me that if the church did say, here is the official English translation, because if you're using words, if you're translating this Latin, it's your own words.
Right.
It's, I'm the one coming up with this right in some way, because I'm putting my own interpretation in it.
Well, okay, so Weller, who has the reserved blessings, was compiled by Weller, and there's an English translation of it. So what it would be is that the demons would know whether or not your bishop gave authority for you to use that English translation. So they would literally know whether that happened. Now, there's a lot of debate as to whether that can even happen. Like, can just a bishop of a diocese give authority for a translation?
Yeah,
and he can, because it's paraliturgical in the sense that it's not for the sacraments; it's a sacramental. But some people would disagree with that.
But would it have the same stance as coming from Rome?
No.
Yeah. See, no. I think if Rome issued this is it, thus saith God.
Yeah. The day that Rome goes back and translates that,
right? Because the bishop,
we will be old men.
The bishop doesn't have that authority to say, "Thus saith God."
Right.
That Rome does.
Right. And the I mean, it literally was the very last thing translated after Vatican II, the ritual. And it was translated disastrously at first and then redone, mostly because bishops in third world countries said, what are you doing? You know, this is not. And so, I mean, it's like they move at a snail's pace.
So I think that's why there's been a lot of confusion, because just from, as an exorcist, he does the rite in Latin and he does it in English, and it's like, well, it works better in Latin.
Right.
Well, and also, I think
people think it's more effective.
Well, but in the Latin, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is there's actually more exorcism prayers. Like,
yeah, there's more imprecatory prayers.
But what we're talking about is just taking that Latin and just translating into English. So all the prayers, there's no difference except what language.
I'm saying, though, you're not comparing you're comparing apples to oranges sometimes. Right. Some people are, because they're saying this was Latin and it worked, this was English and it didn't work. Well, the Latin had more exorcism prayers in it than the English.
Well, I don't think that's the case here.
I would say also you have to remember too that the poverty of Latin academic work now is a problem, because there was a very famous exorcist who's dead now, that everybody kind of knew, who was the president of a university, and I remember one time seeing him kind of struggle through the Latin, you know, and he was struggling, and nothing was happening, you know, and so I could see him get frustrated, and he just put the book aside, and he was very charismatic in the sense of like the charismatic renewal, and went and just prayed for the person, and the person went crazy, right? Because he didn't have the scholarship of Latin that he needed to command that text, and the prenotanda of the ritual literally says, in a commanding voice say, right? So it wants you to say it in a way that you're confident, you know.
Yeah, and isn't that so beautiful? Because it's all a mercy for the person.
It is. It's 100%. And I'm glad you said that.
He commands in a commanding voice so that this person knows
who's in charge.
Exactly. And that it's like me disciplining one of my children.
Right.
My children can do nothing. I mean, it's like, my 5-year-old, what are they going to hurt me?
Right.
It's like, okay, let's fight.
Right.
You know, let's see who wins.
Right.
Yeah, that's that kind of battle.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. It's for the person. It's for everyone in the room. That's why that was written there, so that they know who's in charge here.
You know, there's the analogy that Christ uses, that the gates of hell will never prevail against the church. One does not get attacked by gates.
Right.
The gates are coming at, you know, it's like, no. If we're at the gates of hell, it's because hell is under siege,
right?
And we're the ones attacking,
and
they've closed their gates in fear, like trying to keep us out.
Right. It's the most important thing to understand about spiritual warfare, is that we storm the gates, not the opposite. And that's why I said that about Planned Parenthood, is that go out and conquer through the works of mercy and through pro-life work and evangelization, and we will see unbelievable advances, you know, for the kingdom of heaven.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the demons, Satan, evil, is a dog on a chain.
Right.
And Christ holds the leash, and he is the one who decides how long that leash is, you know. And so people often get afraid of, like, I think there are literally priests out there who say, no, we don't want to talk. I don't want to bring in a spiritual warfare speaker
all the time,
because I don't want to put people in harm's way. Like, they know that that devil is real, And they feel like, oh, if we let people start playing in this arena, then they're going to get hurt, as if they're not in the arena.
Right.
You know, but that's just wrong, because we need to know that Christ is in control.
Right.
We submit to him in all things.
Right.
Whatever his will is, be done.
Right.
You know, if you are one of those victim souls that God wills for you to offer your life through, you know, like a holy demoniac, like you said, God's will be done. God be praised for that. That's probably not you.
Right.
If it is, you need to be listening to other podcasts.
Don't listen to that. Yeah.
This is like, you're way beyond what we're doing here.
It's real problem. The case of holy demoniacs is very problematic in exorcism because
do you do it?
A lot of people find comfort in that idea. So like a demoniac, or the Catholic term for a demoniac is energumen. That's how the church describes it.
Energumen?
Energumen, yeah. And so an energumen will read about a holy demoniac and say, oh, maybe that's me. Maybe this all has meaning.
Wait, what did you say an energumen was?
A possessed person.
Oh, okay. Okay, so not a holy demoniac, but just a possessed person in general.
Will read about holy demoniacs and victim souls, and they'll say, maybe that's me. And you have to realize that's an assent to the possession still.
Right.
So you have to be very careful about that.
Because if you did know for sure, hypothetically, that, you know, this person is a holy demoniac, should you continue to do the exorcism ritual?
They do.
Is that kind of going against God's will?
No, they do. And here's why. I'll explain it. It's very difficult for people to get this concept. So let me try hard. The act of casting out a demon from a body through the exorcism ritual is so damaging to the world of evil that it benefits all of us. And so God would allow someone like Annalise Michel or Saint Gemma or Saint Maria, Blessed Maria of Jesus Crucified, to be possessed because he knows how cooperative they will be with the grace of God in an expelling of that demon in that battle. And so it's kind of like it's better. The only sports metaphor you could think of is in rugby. You always want a huge fat guy on your team. Why? Not because he's going to score all the points. He's going to get the other team tired.
He's going to wipe out a bunch of people.
Right. Yeah. John Vianney, Gemma, these are the big fat guys on our team. The world of evil is sending everything they can to stop them.
Was he a demoniac?
No, but it was clear that his role was to hold back the world. I mean, at one point he is exorcising a demon in his church. He walks out of the confessional. He exorcises this demon, and the demoniac's rolling around on the floor and says, "If there were 3 of them in the world, he would destroy my kingdom." I mean,
right,
I've heard that. Yeah,
that's such a frustrating thing to read because it's like 3.
Yeah.
There aren't 3 John Viannis.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know I'm not it, but maybe one of you guys could at least step up here, right?
Yeah.
Come on, Dave.
And there's a lot of people.
right.
Yeah.
But you need that, right? And it's so that's where the victim soul theology comes from, is the idea that it's so damaging to the world of evil. It helps all of us, you know. Even though the demons hate each other, they're a kingdom. So when you fight that kingdom, it helps all of us in our daily spiritual warfare.
I have one last question, and then I'll let you wrap it up. Auxiliary Christianorum.
I don't know too much about it, but it's excellent, and it's a great organization to be a part of. It's a great way, if you feel called to support priests who are exorcists, it's a great way to do it. I think a lot of people shy away because there's a scary warning that you shouldn't do it without talking to your spiritual director first. Yeah. And I tend to not worry about that as much, but
that's kind of how I feel. Like, they're gonna say that so that if you have a spiritual director, you know, you should talk to them. You know, but that's just prudent. You know, just be prudent about all of the devotions that you take on.
I think we're overly worried about blowback and underly worried about authority. So it's like both sides. You know, both sides.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I was just curious on what your thoughts were on.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I don't use the prayers, but I would.
If you just look at the prayers, they're great beautiful. For really anybody. I mean, they're all about providing protection for you and your family.
Right.
So, you know,
and confusing the devils.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, keeping yourself hidden so that they don't know, they can't see the good work that you do.
Yeah. Speaking of hidden, I'll just tell you this cool story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one time, in one of the first exorcisms I was a part of, the demoniac started. They prayed for the intercession of Saint Joseph, and the demoniac started screaming, "No, he hides them! He hides them! He hides them!" And afterwards I asked the exorcist, I said, Father Paul, what do you think that meant? And he said, what do you mean? I said, that he hides them. And he said, well, there's two roles in spiritual warfare. You have St. Michael going to the front and fighting the battle, and you have St. Joseph hiding us. And I said, why? And he said, well, the devil was looking for a virgin with child. He wasn't looking for an intact family. And so Joseph, just by his presence in the family, hid Mary and Jesus, in a sense, from the full vision. Now, obviously, the devil knew he was attacking all along, but from the full vision of what God was trying to do.
She's not a virgin. She's
right,
married.
Right. She's right in a certain sense. Right. And so.
And he took them to Egypt also to like hide Christ.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I always, like, in my moments of weakness, right, when I'm like, I know another temptation comes, I'm in trouble, I always ask St. Joseph to hide me, to hide me.
That's
so,
epic. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have any other, I can't think of any questions, at the moment. Do you have any other just like awesome stories like that you want to leave us with?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about one topic that's important, and that's mortification and fasting, right? Jesus said that a lot of demons will not come out but by prayer and fasting.
That verse in Matthew chapter 17, verse 21, it's not always in there.
Right.
Why is that?
I don't know. I have no idea. Someone much smarter than I would have to answer.
Okay. The only reason I know that is because I was just writing about it yesterday. Okay.
Really?
And so like I'm not like the guy who's just like quoting scripture all right. Like I wish I was.
Yeah. So so I have a cool story about that. So when I was in high school assisting, the exorcist asked everybody to fast for this particular case. And because of sports, I was not fasting, but I decided I was going to wake up 15 minutes early every day instead of it. And so the next time I went to the exorcism, right at the beginning of the exorcism, all of a sudden the person kind of went into a trance, and immediately out of this person's mouth, the demon said to the exorcist, "Tell him to stop waking up early. Please tell him to stop waking up early." And he was
kidding.
It was that little tiny mortification. And the exorcist said, What's going on? And he said, "Is somebody waking up early and offering it up?" And I said, "Me?" I was like, "Please don't out me." Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. And so then the exorcist said, "Okay, all of us now will be waking up earlier, 15 minutes to help this person." But it really does have a huge effect on what, little mortifications like that have a huge effect on the battle with evil for our family. So it's important,
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. Think about like just that little thing. 15 minutes
like he
had such an impact. Yeah. It drove devils crazy for 15 minutes early.
Yeah. All we do is cooperate. You think about your kids helping you with something. Right. Like they don't actually help you with stuff. Right. But just like something little that they do. Is this. It's big. It's big in the grid. For them, it's big. Yeah. So it's like if we just do something, just allow God to work, so we stop resisting. Because I know that's what I do. So I just am maybe afraid or whatever it is. I resist God's working in my life. It's like if you just kind of like put your hands down and say, "All right, stuff will happen. Miracles will happen." Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well,
Dave, thanks so much, man. It's been a blast to hang out with you.
Yeah. I hope we can do it again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. We will.
All right.
Cool.
Peace.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Good. Me too. Yeah, this is cool.